To everyone, and we'd like to call the Transportation Committee meeting here in Caroline to order. With that being said, I'd like to open up and with the approval of the minutes for the last 2 months. I'm assuming everybody's had the opportunity to look over the minutes. Are there any changes, modifications, or
I think we can approve these minutes as they're submitted, sir.
On page 2 of January 3, it might be.
Well, let's go with December
Might be
first.
Treasury Department.
Yeah, we'll get to that January. I'm sorry, I just open up for December. Let's do the December one first, and then we'll go to
Okay,
the January
December.
one. Yes, sir.
Okay, did you make a motion to approve?
I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
December meeting.
Okay, it's been motion on the floor, and it's been seconded by motion on the floor by Mr. Weaver and seconded by Mr. Alex Long. All those in favor? Was there any question? All those in favor of adopting the minutes as for December the 6th, 2023, as is, please by motion by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? These for December 6th have been approved. Okay, we'll open up the floor for the meetings, the minutes for January 3rd, 2024.
Page 2.
Page 2.
At the top of the bullet, funds generated by Art Park. Via formula by the, should it be Treasury Department?
Treasury, gotcha.
You make that note.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Mr. Long and seconded by Mr. Street. And any question? Okay, so with that being said, we would like to accept the minutes for January 3rd, 2024 as amended with the correction. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Those minutes have been amended and approved. We move forward to our updates with the staff. Mr. Hughes?
I think the only update I have at this point is we may need to rearrange the agenda. Mr. Bates is not here. I think he was first on the agenda.
He said he's coming through town right now, so he's just
Okay.
a couple minutes out.
So would that give you enough time to do yours? So we can,
I don't have a presentation. I didn't put anything together. I didn't know that I didn't have the agenda, so I didn't know I was presenting anything. So I could just briefly discuss it, I guess. So what I plan on doing here, probably later in February or the very 1st of March, is at least come and sit down with Leon and whoever else I need to go over this year's secondary 6-year plan. Be early because we don't have the numbers yet, so they'll just be projected numbers from last year. And what we'll do at that meeting is hopefully come up with new ideas for projects to add. Ones that are on there currently were Farmer Drive, which is out here off of Tidewater Trail, and that was to make a little Y intersection into a T. That is complete, minus raising of one little drop inlet that we're going to be working on in the coming weeks. The next one on the current plan is Rattletrap Road, currently in reviewing ENS and erosion control and environmental plans right now. And I hope to get that one started probably within the next 30 days or so.
That will be a rural rustic project.
Rural rustic project.
So hard surfacing on paved road.
Exactly. So we're taking a unpaved road, it's about 0.8 miles. So that one, the last probably 250 or 300 feet of the road that we want to take out of state service because it looks like it's been abandoned for years. It's overgrown. It doesn't go anywhere. And currently where everybody is stopping, there's a driveway on both sides of the road, so that looks like a good place for a turnaround. So that roadway abandonment would have to be a board action, and a public hearing, so that will be coming soon, the information for that. The only other one on the current plan is Caroline Street, and that's a rural addition. in the town of Port Royal. Currently it ends at like a parking lot, with some, I guess, state, park type of thing.
Wildlife refuge.
Yeah, wildlife refuge. So, this is a project was added, I think, 2 years ago to carry that on to the end. There's a cul-de-sac at the end and some nature trails. It's not a very tough project. It's already hard surface, so we would just come in and dress up the shoulders, do any, maybe any sort of overlay that would need to be done, or a cape seal or something like that. So that should be done like next spring, started, the way the funding's line up. For this year, the only thing that has been mentioned to date is by Mr. Underwood, I think it was, for a turn lane coming off a Devil 3 jump, be a right turn lane onto 207. I guess currently there's just one lane coming out, so everybody wants to turn right on the 207 has to wait for people going, straight or left. So this would be just a little project to put a turn lane there. I think the school or the county already owns the property, so it's not really a major project, not a major cost. So we would just be looking to come up with something else. Little rustic road, anything in the county. So we would just be looking to have ideas for that coming up. And we'll work with Leon and his crew to come up with something and bring it to the board probably in May for approval and public hearing.
So Rick, one of the things we're gonna talk about tonight, later on in the agenda, are priorities, and I'll show you a list of those. And so, just for the committee's information, as we get to that point, when you see the ranking of roads and their categories, we talked about they're broken out into rural roads and growth area roads. I listed the current projects on the secondary 6-year plan as priorities 1, 2, and 3, because I didn't want to have the plan in place and start, shifting priorities. So it's good to hear that at least 2 of the projects, one is complete, one is a fairly easy project, and so the activities to add additional projects on there. And so Rick, if you could spend just a few minutes talking about how Caroline can add projects to the 6-year plan and create, a longer list. We know it's constrained by the lack of funding.
Right.
But if we put projects in the 6-year plan, then it helps us with the prioritization and identifying funding. And so we know going into it, we may not have the funds at this moment, but we can start to identify funding sources and, to apply to projects, and so that as they become funded, we can knock them down, and it gives us for lack of a better word, no pun intended, a roadmap of how to get to where we want to go and tackle these projects.
Yeah, so what happened is I will meet with you and then we'll review that list. And so we have to review it for eligibility. It has to meet certain criteria to be hard surfaced as part of the rural rustic program. It has to, the road has to have been in service or available for public use for 20 years. It has to have 3 occupied dwellings, at least 50 vehicles a day, that sort of thing. So typically if the last house on the road is at least 20 years old, then the road's been, available for 20 years, because that person has to get there. So what we'll do is we'll come up with a list, me and Leon and whoever else is on your team, and then we'll start looking at estimating. I'll come up with the estimates for you, and so then we'll rank what we can do or how many projects we can add to the plan, and then we would take it to the board probably in May and have a public hearing, and then they would vote on it, whether to adopt it or not. Then it becomes part of the SSYP once approved. Next year, this year's plan will have the out years. The funds for out years are projected based on what the allocations are this year. So they could go up or they could go down, and that just happens every year. We haven't got this year's numbers yet, so I guess our initial meetings, if I don't have those numbers, we'll base everything on those projected amounts from last year, and then they'll, be adjusted up or down accordingly once we do get the numbers. So, and that's usually not a big change. Sometimes it's $5,000 or $6,000. So that's where we'll start. I'll reach out to you probably in the next couple of weeks, try to set up that initial meeting and And we'll go over that list and go from there.
So just a question, are the projects eligible for SSYP rural rustic projects?
They can be rural additions as well. So that's like the Caroline Street that I talked about earlier, and that's where we take a road into the system that's not currently in the state system. And so it has to meet those same qualifications, you know, the 20 years and all that, but it can use unpaved road funds or the tele fees, either one. So a rural rustic project can also use either one of those type fees, but a currently hard surface road that just needs maintenance or upgraded isn't eligible to use those rural rustic unpaved road fees. So we have to review it for eligibility. Like they added one a couple years ago, and I'm not sure what the road was. I don't even remember, but it only ended up carrying 10 cars a day, and it had one or maybe two occupied dwellings, so it didn't meet any of the criteria. So we had to drop that one off last year. You remember what it was? I don't even remember what it was. But it was the one,
Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, Liberty Fork.
asked about Liberty Fork. Yeah. But to Leon, to your point, the Farmer Drive project that's wrapping up now is an example of one that was done through the SSYP that was not a rural rustic project. It was already a hard surface road. It was just making some improvements at the intersection. So you can do that, but like Rick said, in that scenario, you have to rely on the tele fee funding. You can't use the unpaved road funding.
Yeah, I just want everyone to understand that SSYP is not limited to rural rustic and rural addition
Not at all.
projects.
Right.
So,
I mean, you can construct turn lanes, you can widen roads, but the more complex you get, the more expensive you get, and keep in mind it's a fixed amount of money. I honestly, and I'm gonna insert a little bit of my personal opinion, but I think we can make the money go further if we look at like spot improvements throughout the county. I think rural rustic projects are great, and if that's the direction, absolutely. It's really up to Caroline County. But there may be some areas where we have safety concerns or run off the road crashes, and maybe some trench widening or some flashing signs if they're warranted. Stuff like that could help.
we could do striping projects.
Again, it has to meet the warrants.
Sure.
But any kind of improvements on a secondary road. Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody so that when we look at our list, we understand that there's possible funding
And
category.
or alternatively, I know like some other counties throughout the state, they'll use the secondary 6-year plan funds to couple together with other funding sources. It could be smart scale, it could be local funds, revenue sharing, the 606 project in Spotsylvania, which is, essentially widening 606 between 95 and Route 1. There's a good amount of secondary 6-year plan funds on that project, as well as a multitude of other revenue sharing and everything else. So.
That's what GWRC was wanting, to use tele fees for the match for the Safe Streets for All effort.
For the SS4A.
Traditionally, I would say especially in rural localities,
$70,000-$80,000 only gets you but so far.
well,
that's what I was gonna come up with.
you're lucky to have 70 or 80. A lot of mine only have 25 or 30, but most of that money, I think traditionally, especially in rural counties, gets spent on existing state gravel roads, that are state maintained and with hard surface. And that's, until you run out of those, that's where a lot of people are spending money.
Well,
Doesn't necessarily mean it has to.
I actually had this conversation today in Charlottesville. I apologize for being late, by the way. Coming from Charlottesville, get back to the residency, coming up here, so it's kind of all over the place. But one of the bills that's going through the General Assembly right now is related to unpaved roads and being able to utilize those funds to do other things other than just hard surfacing on existing, unpaved roads. So if there's roads out in the county that they want to remain as unpaved roads, we can use them for drainage improvements, we can use it for grading the road. Historically, those funds have only been able to be utilized for hard surfacing, unpaved roads. Now we have some more flexibility with those funds, so just another option to throw on the table.
So,
If it
Cal,
goes to-
is that bill getting support or?
I think it's gone through, the transportation, one of the committees.
Senate Transportation has gone through so far.
Do you know the number?
I can find out.
I can find out pretty quick.
It was being sponsored by some folks up in Loudon.
Is House Bill 74, Senate Bill 644.
Senate Bill 740?
644.
640.
We actually, for what it's worth, we tried to get our thoughts in there to take away the 50 vehicles per day for just the maintenance items, and that got kicked back.
Very good. Anything else you guys want to add relative to SSYP? Rick, just for the committee's information, if you have it, do you have our current plan?
I do not, I apologize, I was working on some other stuff today and I didn't know I was gonna be actually talking about it or presenting, so I didn't actually look at it. But just by, initial glance at this, it looks like you got like $300,000 in telecommunication fees and just only about 30,000 in unpaved road fees.
Is that over the 6 years?
That is, well, that's for the last 4, so it'd be another probably 80 of tele fees and another 10 or so of unpaved roads, so.
The, plan, signed SSYP, right?
Yeah, from last year. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I just needed to add this year.
What's in it already? So Farmer Drive, Rattle Trap, and.
Caroline Street,
That's
rural
what
additional.
we're
Okay, very good. So what I'll do for the committee members, I will send you all a copy of the current plan, everybody, so you
I
guys.
think, was that,
Can you display that?
I should, apparently, I can not. It's working on it. It should have,
Leon, what's the status of the, transportation component of
Close
the
the
comp
pathway.
plan, Caroline?
So it's actually, the draft has been done. GWRC completed the draft, so we have a draft.
Don't you think that'd be a great thing for this committee to look at?
I do.
oh, there
And
we go.
Wonderful.
that is on the horizon.
Yep,
There we go.
that's it.
Is that it?
That's what I'm looking at too. So, I mean, Rick, do you wanna kinda walk them through what this is? I know it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, so the priority number 1, which is on top, that is one, so one of the things we have to do as part of this process is, like the one on top, I
There
don't
we
think
go.
he's, yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
it shows that we are funded to $65,000. So I just wrapped that up and we spent like 80. We had some tree removal and some utilities we had to move. So one of the things we'll have to do is cover that. Also, the Caroline Street, it is showing that we have $90,000, and I don't think it's gonna take $90,000 to do that one, so we would take, whatever is left over when that one is complete and pull that down, and that will be available for use. Rattle Trap, it's got a lot of money on it too, that I'm not sure it's gonna need quite that much after going down and visiting them sites, so we'll be meeting with our contractor on that project in the next few weeks, so he will provide me with an updated estimate for that, and that'll get updated accordingly, so it could come down, it could stay the same, but that's part of what we do. We'll cover deficits, we'll take completed projects that have surplus, and moving down into those bottom projects, which are pretty much like bank accounts or a holding for those funds. So, I mean, if they wanted to add that, turn lane at the high school, we would fund that, and then we would look to fund it as early as we can, since that would be the next priority. And then, so we would take from those funds that are on the bottom that are showing as priority 4 and 5 right now. So that's the kind of stuff we'll be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, let's call it, it's a constant shell game. You're constantly moving money around to cover the deficits, and you're getting surpluses from other projects, and you're balancing that checkbook. Every year we do this, and we look at estimates every year, because an estimate that Rick put together 5 years ago is not going to be the same as an estimate that we would put together today. It's just different. Inflation, we add that stuff in at the time, but nobody could, look at the inflation that we were going to be dealing with, post-COVID. So we review these things every year. He's getting ready to go through it with a fine tooth comb and do the same thing on all of those existing projects. We'll probably have some money to play with from the existing projects, is what I'm gathering and hearing what Rick is saying, and the conversations that we've had. So we got to cover the stuff on Farmer Drive. And then after that, any money that's surplus from those other projects that we foresee having, there's no sense in having dead money on a project we know we're not going to utilize. If it's overfunded, we're going to take that money. We're going to ask you all, hey, where do you want to program it? And maybe it's a project that's not on here. If it's not enough to do anything with, we can put it on a countywide, and we can do this same exercise next year. And yeah, it's really up to the committee and ultimately the board as far as what those priorities are, as long as they meet the secondary 6-year plan parameters.
Very good. So quick question for clarification. Mr. Thomas was always mentioning a turn lane project at the high school. Is that the same turn lane project that Rick was mentioning, the turn lane off of Devil's Three Jump?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Is the total unpaid road funds just under 10,000 a year? Is that what the allocation is? So that tells me we don't have that many unpaid roads, I guess.
Or that you don't get that much paper money in Carolina.
But isn't it kind of,
Yeah.
do you have a
I mean,
list?
there's not,
Do you have a list?
I have a list at the office of the unpaved roads. I haven't gone through to see which ones qualify, because unfortunately a lot of them don't qualify. Like Liberty Fork.
Does it 50 vehicles a day?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Liberty
Just need
Fork
to do an
had
account and tell us when it is.
Seriously.
Not far.
Committee field trip.
Yeah, right.
Rick will take his glasses off.
Well, the one that's on the plan now, real close to being under that 50 vehicles a day. So I put a tube out there, and so it surpassed that threshold when we got to 1 day, 24-hour count.
Good job.
And the turn lane for the high school, that was the one we're looking at. That was another request that came in about a year ago. That was coming off of Devil's Three Jump, turning right onto Rogers Clark. I've got a little sketch here. It's nothing glorious. It's just basically a black mark that shows a turn lane being added there. So.
Yeah, and I'll send you that. I have 2 different estimates on it. There's 2 entrances coming out of the school. One's like 250 feet, and one's about 500 feet. So I've worked up estimates on both that I can share with you.
When you say coming out of school, you mean onto Devil's Three Jump,
Yes.
out of the parking area?
Right towards 207.
And would
Well,
no.
Y'all are saying different things. So
yeah.
from Devil's Three Jump, a right turn lane on to 207.
Right. But on Devil's Three Jump, there are access points from the school
Yeah, that's
onto Devil's Three Jump.
those are remaining the same. That's private. I mean,
No, I understand, but he was saying the distance between those entrance points. I'm trying to clarify where you were talking about those entrances are. Are they on Devil's Three Jump, or are they on?
Yeah, they're on Devil's Three Jump.
Right. Okay.
There's 2 right turn lanes at the same intersection, just going different directions. One's going on to 207, one's going on to Devil's Three Jump, right?
at the from 207.
Yeah. There's 207 and Devil's Three Jump. One is turning right onto Devil's Three Jump. One's turning right from Devil's Three Jump onto 207. Is that right?
it's one lane.
Yeah.
Coming
It's-
from
it's
Devil's
left.
Ridge.
That's left and right.
Yeah.
So the people who wanna turn right have to sit there and wait. for the
Yeah,
people.
so you're adding a new.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and,
The one's just on the other side of Devil's Street from the other.
So Rick, would that, first entrance coming out of the parking lot on Devil's Theory Jump, would that be, would that have any bearing with that right turn lane, any restrictions?
no, I think, it's long enough to meet any sort of warrants, and that's one of those things where anything you do helps, so you might not wanna do the grand one that's like 550 feet long, I can't remember what it was.
Mhm.
When the smaller one is cheaper and it'll do the job.
I would say that should be a high priority. I mean, it benefits the entire county. We only have one middle school, one high school. Everybody's kids go there. If you've ever tried to drop off at either school, it's a cluster. And the police are in that intersection trying to direct, and it would make it much easier for them, safer. I don't know that we'd have a better project.
They're trying to steal my thunder, Dave.
I spent some time in that queue.
Okay.
So yeah, he's got one that's 250 feet, one that's 500 feet. Essentially, it's like, do you take it to the first entrance of the high school or the middle school, or do you take it to the second entrance? That's basically the question.
Yeah, I was just curious as to if the county needed to close off that 200 entrance. You know, would it be too short of a distance for someone to come out of there to try to go all the way across traffic to get into the turn lane?
Probably.
Tough.
But
Only at 7:30 in the morning.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of truth to what you just said.
Yes.
You're trying to solve an issue that's this amount of time in the morning and that amount of time in the afternoon. So,
Okay.
you know, if we were to, you know, David is the expert in all things spacing, because he used to live this world. But like, if we were to permit that school there today, I doubt that entrance meets the spacing that we would not allow the school to build it like that today.
Sure.
But it's there. It's
Yeah.
grandfathered in per se. We're not obviously not changing that now. I would do that everywhere. So
Would it be a consideration or issue to put signage there to say between such and such hours, you can't exit this area, it's only a right turn into the parking lot?
might upset the school, but we wouldn't be.
I mean, it's a safety, I'm looking at the safety of the school and the individuals utilizing that parking lot.
It would be much better for them to go out to the other
To the other
entrance if they
entrance,
tried to get there.
They can't get there.
Can't do that?
There's no way.
No,
The
there's no
only way
connection.
that
They could
used to
make
be,
a connection.
they could make a connection. I'm looking at it.
Oh, okay, okay, I was like, I was wondering if you had it in your memory, yeah. Okay.
I'm looking at it.
So anyway, these are all, we're getting really into the weeds, but these are all things that when we sit with Leon, you know, we want to make sure we are getting the priorities from the county. And, you know, if you all have other ideas of things, I just am encouraging you to this is the place to dump them so that we can look at ultimately prioritizing them and getting them through the SSYP in April, May timeframe.
Thank you, Rick.
Sure.
So we can go back
Any
to-
other updates, sir?
No, we can actually go back to
Gosh.
the first item.
Well, actually, it was third. But,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, updates were first. Since we're done with the updates, we'll move to the VDOT report. Sure. Mr. Bates, if you would.
Yeah, and I'm, Rick, you didn't give this while I was late?
I thought that was coming to that.
Hindsight, next time I'll. So, this is the Caroline County Board Report. I actually did it in February. We had some pretty substantial rain when I was supposed to do it in January, and we ended up postponing it. But there's a lot of information. I do this about quarterly. We're trying to get on a more regular schedule. I think I basically got Caroline County planned for when I'm going to do it for the rest of the year. We're looking at every 2 or 3 months. So these slides are anything and everything that's going on currently in the county and some things that are on the horizon. Some of it's maintenance, some of it is like larger projects. It's things that are finished up, things that are planned. And then I also give out a report to the board that is in their packet that literally lists everything. I don't put everything in a slide because I don't want to be up there talking for too long because Clay will tell me to get out. But there's a lot of information from VDOT that I give out to the board on basically a quarterly basis. So I'm just gonna quickly go through this. Some of you all have heard this before, so I don't want to spend too much time. But if there's any questions, don't hesitate to holler at me and we can dive in a little deeper. So the first one here for a project update. This is a smart scale project, Route 639, Lady Smith Road. You all, unless you've lived under a rock, you have gone through this road after it's finished. We have a couple punch list items that they're finishing up through mid-February, but the project is substantially completed. So, next slide. This is Route 1 over South River. So this is kind of the project right around the corner, if you will. This is an old picture. This project is now completed as well. The only thing, if you all know me, this is a pet peeve for me, is eradication on nice, beautiful pavement. So they did the overlay right in the area of the bridge that they replaced they strengthened the beams and the substructure. They eradicated some of the pavement markings, and now we have ghost markings on either side of the bridge, which is ugly. So we're actually coming in after the winter and milling out and filling that entire area. So anywhere you see a ghost marking, that will be fixed. That was a little frustrating by that, but we're gonna fix it. So contractor issues. Route 301, Chase Street. This is a smart scale project that the town and the county applied for. This is a 14.1 million fully funded through smart scale, $0 down from the locality or the town. We started preliminary engineering, so you might have seen us out surveying around the area. We recently got a second resolution of support from the town because there was some back and forth about the crossovers. Everybody is feeling great about this project now. Just to highlight a couple things related to it, without diving too deep in the weeds, there's some improvements within the town here. So there's a signal upgrade here at Chase and Main Street. There's some lighting involved with the pedestrian crossings. There's a pedestrian crossing there. You'll see this kind of hashed out area here, hashed out area here. Those are sidewalks that we're looking to add. We have another pedestrian crossing here and sidewalks basically all the way down there. So a lot of really great things. Also, the gravel lot that you all know right there on Chase Street. We're looking to pave that and stripe it and all those good things. The item of contention, at least previously, has been some of the crossovers. This is Chase Street here, and you have 301, 207, and some of the things we're looking at doing are restricting some movements at these areas. So you will no longer be able to make if you're coming from the town, you will no longer be able to make a left out onto 207. And that while that may sound, oh my gosh, how am I going to get out? There's other ways around. But that's a very dangerous intersection. If you all have ever been through that area and tried to make that movement, you're combating a lot of conflicting movements and some very fast speeds. People having to make a lot of decisions very fast, motorists, and there's a high crash rate at that intersection. So yes, you may have to make a right to go left or potentially go through the town and come up on Broadus. There's some options there. They are better, safer options, none of which are the most ideal, but they are more ideal than the left turn out there. So, and then the other thing we are looking to do is close off the crossover there. We worked with emergency services and the sheriff's department. They are very on board with this. They can still get out. We are looking at a mountable crossover there for them to get out, because as you know, the fire station's right there. So just the quick and dirty on that slide. So next slide. This is Route 640 Smoots Road. I had originally taken this slide off, and then in the time that between January and February, when I actually came back to do the board meeting, I had some more information here. The Fort Walker has, done some upgrades to their dam. I think they're still working on it, as far as I know. They may be getting close to finish. I've seen some pictures here recently. We originally had this, on a plan to replace the bridge. But we pulled off because, DCR got involved and essentially said, don't touch it. They've got some things to do with the dam before we, foresee you all doing any work on the bridge. So we pulled off of that until Fort Walker could do the work that they needed to do. So, it's plausible that this will be back on a plan in the future. I don't have a plan right now as far as when it's gonna be replaced, but, Fort Walker did do some work on the dam that looked pretty good from the pictures that I saw, so. This is 638 over South River. This is a state of good repair project. This is a little far out. This is a construction project scheduled for fall of 2025 to be completed in fall of 2026. I just put this on here because it is going to require a road closure. The detour is looking at Ladysmith Road and Page Road. Before we do any of these closures, we work with school transportation. We work with your fire and rescue, your first responders, the county admin, the county staff. We work with everybody to let them know well ahead of time that it's coming. We put message boards up, make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. So just putting that on really for the first responders on there.
At some point, can you talk about the funding source for these projects?
Sure. The state of good repair is, federal funds that come to us that are utilized for, very specific things. When you talk about bridges, that's a big one. It's looking at structurally deficient structures. So we get funding from the feds that we are able to utilize for particular projects. I can't just go out and do any bridge in the world. So I know it's probably going through your brain. 639 bridge, not structurally deficient, over 95, not structurally deficient, so it does not qualify for state of good repair. Does that answer your question that you didn't ask?
Well, no. I just wanted people to understand the
Yeah.
funding source
Yep.
and how these projects are getting done and where
Yep.
the money's coming from.
Uh,
No, I'm gonna get a wide load to hit that bridge.
Overheight, yeah, something very large, very heavy.
I say it won't work. I'm sorry, we're good. So, Route 207 eastbound, this is another state of good repair. If you remember, we did the westbound bridge and we detoured traffic onto the eastbound side. So this is gonna be the literal opposite of that. We are going to, replace the eastbound and divert everybody onto the westbound. So, that is a project that is part of a design build bundle. So we don't necessarily have a time frame yet. They are working through, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong here, but they're working through the request for qualifications, and I think that, as part of that, once that gets back, they get to dictate their schedule. There's a bunch of different bridges and projects on that bundle, but as that, how many? Four. So, some of which might be down in your area, Northern.
One of them.
Yep, so, once we get that information back, we'll know a little bit more about what their order of operation could be. This could be the first one they work on, it could be the last one they work on, but the way that this design build process goes, they get to choose. So, can't really give you a time frame on that one yet. I haven't heard anything more recently,
I think the Windmill Point one is going first.
so that's bad news for us.
Might be second.
As soon as I find out from the contractor, whoever ends up doing the work, that'll be in one of the future board reports. So, carry on. Economic development project. So this is not a VDOT project, but it is worth noting because I think it's something to celebrate. The county applied through, the economic development, the LAD, Local Assistance Division in central office. Ultimately, it goes through the Commonwealth Transportation Board and got awarded $250,000. Yeah, I can't recall it. Andrew might be on that thing. A substantial amount of money nonetheless, to start preliminary engineering and design on two projects in Caroline County, Dry Bridge Road and Ruther Glen. So what those projects are is looking at these roads. Obviously, there's a lot of large development back there, industrial development, And as part of that, the roads are substandard to what, the types of traffic that are actually riding on them. I think both from underneath the pavement standpoint, I think it needs to be upgraded, and then a width standpoint. So, and then in addition, if you look at Dry Bridge, you've got a lot of curviness here, especially when you get to this area. One of the things that the county is looking to do is take some of those bends out of the road. That's gonna require right of way, so, and this is a full-on project, but Caroline County has applied for and got awarded a substantial sum of money to work on the preliminary engineering and design for these two projects. So, that's exciting. That got awarded in, I think December of '23.
Does everybody know where this is? Just want to be sure.
Route 1 project pipeline study. So essentially the pipeline study up and down Route 1 is to look at various intersections throughout Caroline County on Route 1 to focus on maintaining capacity and look at trying to improve traffic flow through Route 1. So this could be some spot turn lanes, it could be some restriction of movements. Essentially that entire stretch of Route 1 that you see there from county line to county line, every intersection going up and down there for the most part is gonna have some kind of proposed improvement. I know in speaking with Leon, one of the high priorities is Page Road, where there is some crash history, might be a good candidate for the upcoming smart scale round if everything is.
Is that gonna take Route 1 up into the Woodford area?
Yeah, it's the
Spotsy line.
county
All
line
the
to
way to
county
Spotsy
line.
line.
Okay.
Spotsy down to Hanover. So, and also with that, you know, you'll have good shelf-ready smart scale applications in the future. So, and I, you know, credit to Leon on this one. This is one that he was pushing since he got here. You know, Caroline County didn't apply for anything in the last smart scale. And so I think Leon's push here, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is trying to make sure that when that time comes, whether it's this round or the next round, you've got a plethora of projects that meet all the qualifications for smart scale that Caroline County will be able to apply for.
Without getting too deep into it, but what kind of, just kind of give me a general idea of what kind of upgrades would be done on
Sure.
that?
Well, Page Road specifically, the sketch that I saw was showing left turn lanes from both northbound and southbound.
Okay.
So I think maybe even right turn lanes as well. So some really nice improvements in an area that you've got some decently high crash rates, and the crashes at that location are typically rear end crashes or angle crashes. The angle crashes are severe. That's, you have someone going 60, 65, maybe more miles an hour, and T-bone crash going that speed is sometimes death. So, you know, even the rear end crashes that you have somebody at a dead stop, potentially going 65 miles per hour, hitting them behind, that's a severe crash. So having turn lanes, getting that queue out of the way, allowing them to make that maneuver safely without people coming up speeds behind them, allowing the left turn lanes going onto Page and other side of Marie, onto Page and Marie, get them out of Route 1, and they can sit and make a decision safely when they're comfortable. Whereas they may feel rushed to make that decision if traffic's coming 60 miles an hour behind them. So that's one example. Some other examples may be restricting left turns out of the side streets, potentially looking at sending them down to other locations, some median restrictions, if you will.
Mhm.
Acceleration lanes for left turns out, anything like that.
One of the things that I've been getting a lot of concern about, of course, I don't necessarily like the idea it has to be crashes and fatalities before we can make a change, but coming out of Hanover County, and as soon as you come out of Hanover County, making the left onto Oxford Road, right there, that hill, it's you got a major blind spot there. So if somebody stopped there, especially on the weekend traffic coming southbound, they'd get everybody getting on off of 95 on the Route 1. Somebody's sitting there to make that left turn. There's been plenty of times that squealing wheels.
And is the sight distance that's being blocked because of the curve in the road, like the vertical crest of the road?
The crest of the road, yes.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I know you got that a lot down in the southern parts of Route 1 in
Yes.
Carrollton County. That's a pretty substantial fix. It could be cutting down that vertical curve, or maybe there's an opportunity. I don't know off the top of my head what the study says, but maybe there's an opportunity to restrict that movement and make them turn left at a location. Might be inconvenient, but maybe there's a safety aspect to that somewhere else.
So-
Elsewhere. So, and to touch on the comment, like, we are definitely not waiting for fatalities, but the example that I use is I have areas out, not just in Caroline County, but Spotsylvania, Stafford, and all throughout the state where there are fatalities. So when you talk about prioritization and funding, it's going to go to the known issues that we have out there out and about today.
Mhm.
That's what you're fighting against. There's a fixed amount of funding, right? We could, do all the things we do, but it's a prioritization game. So not to say that VDOT is waiting for issues, but we really have to focus on the existing issues.
And thank you all for that repair. I'm sorry, Lee, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you all for that repair on the culvert, right, just north of that, right south of Carmel Church, where that culvert was always backed up and water would come across the road and freeze. Yeah, so, yeah, that was.
So Kyle, can you talk a little bit about the fact that the Route 1 study is being done? It creates a study for that corridor, not only for Smart Scale, but that's kind of the basis for any projects along that corridor. The fact that it's in a study allows us to now get set funding.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first step.
Allows you to work towards something.
We had the 301 study. I don't think we produced anything other than maybe the Chase Street from Port Royal to Hanover, other than Chase Street.
I was not part of that study, but I know there's been a lot of feelings on it.
Right. Yeah.
So you had the 207, 301.
Endorsed that study.
Go ahead.
I mean, the 207, 301 corridor study, if that's what you're referring to. You also had the projects from 2 rounds ago, which included turn lanes at 639 and Nelson Hill on 207, unsignalized green T intersections. Those were scored in Smart Scale. They didn't score well, but they were recommended in the study. So you tried at least once. And King George has had some limited success with a couple projects out of that study. They were part of that as well.
I just have a question. What makes the difference for the timeline for coming out of a study, and what are the points that need to be hit to moving from a study to actual taking it further into a project? Like I saw, or we talked about for the passage over the bridge on Ladysmith Road, right, in that horrible section over the bridge where it's one lane and that came and turn, and you're navigating that. And if you don't look to your left, you don't even realize you're in lane, and next thing you know, you're smack into all cars. And you can't, if it's still in the study, or continue to be in the study until, like, I think it said like 2028 possibly, depending. And so if all these things are in studies, right, at what point do they come out of a study and possibly get action? What forces that?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding the question, I think, after this study is completed, you have at any given time the ability to apply for funding, or if you get funding and it's local funding, I mean, there's so many different funding sources, whether it's, to name a few that we've talked about already tonight, there's secondary 6-year plan, which is a small amount, but an amount nonetheless. There's
You can
Smart
combine
Scale.
the amounts, right? They can all combine, but you only need one study
Absolutely.
to say that they can combine them.
Absolutely. Yes, smart scale, the downside to that is you're applying for funding. Usually that funding is awarded and it's scheduled over 6 years. So it's not something you're gonna see go to construction like that. For instance, Lady Smith Road, that was applied for in like, before we even called it smart scale.
That's what it's
It was House
referencing,
Bill
right.
2 or whatever it was. Gosh, back in 2015-ish,
Somewhere around there, yeah.
and we just finished in
Okay.
2023.
Actually, before that, before I was on the board, that's been over a year.
Yeah. So you put the application together, you go through the process, you get it scored. So Smart Scale is a long-term thing. I will say recently we had the opportunity to advance a lot of our Smart Scale projects. I advanced all from the last round, whatever. I advanced me, I literally had nothing to do with it. But our team advanced all of the projects by year to 2 years in that round, with the exception of the one in Caroline County because there was a lot of back and forth about the Chase Street crossover with the town of Bowling Green, and I didn't feel comfortable telling them to spend money on that until I had a resolution from the town. So, which I now have, and we are working actually to move forward.
I think the short answer to your question is money. So if we, now that a project in a study, if we have money to do the project, then we can go and do the project.
But right, we haven't historically, Caroline County, haven't historically had a list of shelf-ready projects, and it goes back to the last smart scale game that we didn't apply for. Yes, it would have been 6 years out, but right now it's 8 to 10 years.
Right,
out
we
that
would have been
didn't-
that much closer.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So, sorry.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
So this one, Route 2 over Bowie's Pond, if you've driven away from here going north, you've seen the temporary signal. We had some complications with the temporary signal, and Sheriff Moser read me the riot act very quickly because the contractor's battery was freezing in some of the really, really low temperatures that we had about a month or so ago. We have since fixed that. We made the contractor have a generator out there. I haven't heard any issues since. There was one other problem where somebody didn't pull up to the stop bar and the sensor didn't pick them up, and so everyone just sat there because one person was distracted and not going to where they needed to go, so the sensor didn't get them. We do have Opticom on that, so first responders are able to get through with the green light when they need to. You will see that area out there. What they're doing is a single lane closure out there to basically reconstruct that box culvert that is where you had a lot of crumbling up of the concrete, for lack of a better term. They're working to fix that and put some reinforced concrete down. As part of that, they're using a very special type of concrete. Without getting too technical, it needs a long time to cure. So the reason this project is taking as long as it is and will take as long as it's going to is because that concrete needs, I think it was like 30 days, and they got to do one side at a time. So you will see a lot of nothing going on out there. Don't think that's because we're lazy. It is because we're using a very special type of concrete that is going to hold up very, very nicely out there. So just in case you get any questions about not seeing any putty work out there. So we also have a temporary speed limit of 45 miles per hour. So another item, and Mr. Underwood asked if I could send some of this to the group, and I absolutely will do that. Rick, if you could bring up those those plans for those, see if you can snag that. But these are high-risk rural road crash analysis and mitigation. So these funds, they're not sure if they're federal funds or if they're state funds. HSIP. So if they're through the HSIP program, they are federal funds. The high-risk rural road funds are basically spot improvements out at locations that we have issues. So we talked about known problems. where you may have run off the road crashes, you may have angle crashes. What they're doing at these different locations, this is just one example. The other ones is a section of Ladysmith Road, Sparta, Signboard, Jericho, Rosedale, and Elvon Road. They're doing some different things like relocating signs, upgrading signage, adding striping, putting some advanced warning signs, putting some arrows, night arrows, changing the traffic flow even. This is Ruther Glennon Signboard, if my memory serves. So, you know, if you're familiar with that intersection, you have a stop condition coming from that side of Signboard. They're looking to you know, the stop condition remains the same, but they are looking to kind of keep traffic flowing around this curve. But obviously it's almost a 90-degree turn, so there's a lot of notice, a lot of chevrons, things that are being upgraded, things that are being added. You can say the same thing about all of the other routes on this. What we'll do tomorrow is I'll send this out to everybody. Rick has basically the entire list of these at those different locations. We'll send those out to you all just for your education. But within by fall of 2024, all of these are going to be completed. So a lot of really good upgrades that I think will make a difference. Awesome. So.
If you can get a little closer to the microphone.
So here we have Farmer Drive. This is right up the road, kind of next to the area headquarters there. This is the project to realign Farmer Drive, coming up to 17 or coming up to Route 2 there. That is completed. We've removed the asphalt from the sides. That was a small project that Rick and our specialty crew did. It's substantially, basically complete at this point. Anything I missed there, Rick?
Just have to move, raise that drop in with the traffic's open and all. So.
Did you adjust the intersection warning signs on either side?
Did they not?
No, I'm just asking.
I think they did.
Okay. They've got all the old funny things.
And then,
Sorry, let me go back.
yeah, just, so that, like we had to adjust that yellow arrow that's pointing both ways since we moved the intersection. We moved that over, and I did ask him to move the route marker down and all, so.
You're talking about the advanced warning on 2.
Yeah, only because I had them fix them 3 years ago. I guess it was 5 years ago when they put them up. But they have these funny angles on them because the road crosses.
Used to have funny angles.
It doesn't cross at those angles anymore. It's just a piece of tape on the sign.
I'm going north after this. So I'll check it out.
It might already be.
Rattle Track Road, basically all the preliminary engineering work is done on this, and Rick has plans to hard surface this gravel road through the Rural Rustic program. We talked about that. These are secondary 6-year plan funds. That is happening next construction season, so summer of 24. This is an area out on Sparta Road at Passing Road. From what I understand, I heard from Kevin Whiteman, the building official, that building is actually coming down soon. Just FYI, it's nothing to do with VDOT, but that's what I heard. We did some striping improvements through that curve. There's a lot of people running through this curve and ending up in this ravine over here. And we have warning signs and we have everything else, but we upgraded a couple things, and then we added some striping through the curve to kind of bring you around the area there, around that curve, because that is the movement that most people are making. So that was completed in fall of 2023. These were some crossover improvements at Chase Street. This is the crossover that we discussed a little earlier coming out of the town of Bowling Green. That's going to change with the project, but until that time comes, they added some striping, some yield diamonds, and some signage to better navigate people through that crossover. There we go. Manicure mowing, we sent that list out to the county. I'm really excited about this because I know this is a high priority for Caroline County, Stafford County as well as taking advantage, and Spotsylvania Mike. You know, our mowing cycles, we mow 3 times on the primary, 2 times on the secondary. That is our best practice. That alleviates safety issues. Admittedly, doesn't look very good, okay? So what I'm working on is, we get very good pricing from our contracts. Caroline County, Joey Schiebel, I've been working with him. He's been working with the board to identify funding, and we are going to, utilizing one of our contracts, mow up to 10 times in select areas that the county identified as priority spots. We are looking to mow, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, it's up to 10 times in the mowing season.
Yeah, it was every 2 weeks from April to October.
That's big news. So where those areas are, do you?
Yep.
put you on
So
the spot?
it's, yeah, I knew you were doing this. I'll pull it up. So 207 around Caroline High School, and then 207 through the Carmel Church area. Route 1 around Ladysmith Road in the new project area where we've got the median. And then 301 right out here on the southern end of the town of Bowling Green.
So we sent that, there was some chatter at the board meeting when I did this presentation about potentially adding some areas.
I think staff did that on their own.
Yes.
So there wasn't a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
So when it was brought up, I'm like, oh, I got something to add to that.
Okay.
Staff
Well,
already submitted.
Would the town of Fort Royal have to pay for this, or does the county pay for it, or does VDOT do it?
The county is paying for the mowing, unless they want to make the town do it, but we'd have to do an agreement, the town would have to pay us, so.
We don't have much money anyway.
You can do it under permit if you'd like. There's other avenues. This was an attempt to get this done at a better cost.
Great idea.
Look, I understand, it's okay that we have different priorities, right? I mean, we are doing for safety and operation. And I think that Caroline County specifically puts a lot of emphasis on aesthetics. I think that's great. You all help us with the Adopt a Highway program more than any other county. You drum up excitement about the Adopt a Highway program. Your county has people dedicated to basically championing that program. So that's for litter removal. But same thing here is, y'all are setting aside a certain sum of money to have VDOT mow for aesthetics. And I think that's a great thing. You're not the only county that's doing it. I've got Stafford and Spotsylvania looking to do the same thing and follow in your footsteps. So kudos to you all for wanting that. So more routes can be added. Just got to pay for it. So, all right, carry on. We had a lot of rain. We had the flooding event. The Rappahannock, I think, got up to like 18 feet. Caroline County had a lot of roads closed. We had a washout on Beverly Run that we had to replace. So we have drainage complaints. I just encourage you all, if y'all have drainage complaints or you hear about them from your friends, your family, put them in through the 1-800-4ROAD system. You call the hotline, or you can go onto the website and report a road problem. That stuff goes directly to my area headquarters. They get those work orders. You can request a call back. They'll give you a call, talk about what's going on, get it on their plan, and get it fixed. So, the issue you're talking about on Route 1, that's probably I don't know anything about it, to be honest. Like, my guys, they got a work order, I'm assuming, and they handled it. So,
yeah, 1-800 works.
1-800-4ROAD.
It works.
Thank you.
Resurfacing schedule. This is a
recording of that.
I'm right with you.
1-800-4ROAD, great resource, legitimately, as we laugh about it. I'm telling you, it allows us to better plan our work and kind of implement our plan. So, people like to send me things, and that's okay. I usually, if they're minor things like a pothole or a drainage issue, I typically give them to my business coordinator, and she puts them into the system. So that's usually how I handle those things. Even as a board meeting, if I get drainage complaints or pothole complaints, a lot of times I'm going to my business team and saying, put in work orders for these. That's how they get done. So this is the resurfacing schedule for 2024. We've had pre-cons, I think, for all of this stuff at this point, meaning that the contracts have been awarded and the contractors are getting ready to go to work in the next couple months. starting likely in March. And they have any time between March and, what is it, October, November, to complete these routes. It is up to them which order they go in. So we can ask nicely to put things at the top of the list, but ultimately the contract, the way that it's written, they get to dictate their schedule, where they go and when they do it. We have certain restrictions. For instance, if you're in a subdivision, I wouldn't let you pave at night because I would get cussed out, and I don't want to be cussed out. So, just to highlight a couple, 17 from Petmeyer to the county line and Spotsylvania. Route 30 from Richmond Turnpike 301 to the King William County line. Section of Sparta Road, Ladysmith Road, Signboard. Ladysmith, I think, is on both sides. One, I guess, east of out by Balti to 207, and then on the other side from Bridlewood to Parkland. So a lot of really good stuff coming to Ladysmith Road. Signboard in multiple locations, Schumann's, CCC. So some of this is surface treatment, some of it is plant mix. It depends on the condition of the road, the vehicles per day.
Which one is which?
Between plant mix and, so plant mix is like asphalt. When you think, black asphalt on 95 or Route 1, that's what plant mix is. Surface treatment, which we use often, is a thinner treatment. It's essentially a tar and gravel, for lack of a better term. We call it chip seal, surface treatment, what other random terms? Tar and chip, yeah. But essentially they're putting down tar and they're putting down a certain size aggregate, put down some more tar, and then they put down some fine aggregate on top. It's a little dusty when it first happens. Give it a week and a half, all those fines either blow up or they beat into the road more often than not. So maybe a little bit of a messy construction process. We have to wash a car after construction, but
Change your windshield.
What's that?
Change your windshield.
Well, they're fines. They shouldn't. If you have a broken windshield, that's a claim, and the contractor will pay for that. So let us know through 1-800-4-ROAD if that happens. It's a shameless plug there. But you will have a lot of fine dust coming up. That is part of the process. We need those fines to beat into the road. I tell you that there are roads that I've been on that are surface treated. You can't tell the difference sometimes between the surface treatment and the asphalt, given some time. You got to let the traffic of the road essentially beat those fines in. So, all right, carry on. That is it. So this is our contact information. The only person of these three out here tonight is Carolyn Alster. Carolyn is my land use engineer, so she handles the job that David previously was in. Carolyn handles any new developments that are coming in, any new subdivisions, roadway acceptance, anybody that's looking to connect to a state road or become a state road. That's land use. That's where she gets involved. So. And then Rick is over there for small projects, and Andrew is on the maintenance side. So that's all I got. Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but
That's all right. Good
Thank you.
information. Thank you.
Thank you, good job. Thank you.
Claudia. All right.
I'm sorry.
Hey, George.
Go to the.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Thank you for that, Kyle. And we've already heard from Rick. Now, next on the agenda would be project ranking discussion by the staff.
So I think from the very first transportation committee meeting, we started talking about a ranking system for our roads in the county. And so kind of developed a methodology here, try to keep it really simple so that it's not too complex, but to add some items. And so the ranking system consists of type of roads. So there's a weighted already assigned to the type of roads, so whether it's principal, minor arterial, collector, or local roads, or village in the growth area. You get an automatic assignment of points there. And then in the rural projects area, for principal, minor arterials, collectors, or local roads, there's a line already assigned to the project. And can you scroll down? And so then there's a smart scale category for projects that we think are eligible for smart scale. And the two categories in there are safety and economic development, which are the big weights in smart scale, and are the two categories that will particularly apply to Caroline as a rural jurisdiction. So you get lots of points for safety and lots of points for economic development. So those are the two categories that most aptly apply to Caroline. And so added those two where it relates to smart scale. And then as you come down, the system performance category.
Too far?
Yep. Yeah. The system performance category, you can rank items with a total of 1 through 10 for the vehicles per day, the number of crashes, and then the severity of crashes. Include, and then down you have the land use coordination, surrounding, and area development patterns category. So then you would score the project based on the economic development benefit, the project feasibility, and then public support. And then as you scroll down, you can kind of see here, I've added the ADT and given the vehicle trips per day a weighted score. So 0 to 400, you get 1, and up through, greater than 10,000 trips per day, you get 6 points. And then in the 5-year crash data, which is used in the smart scale measure, is 5 years. And so you can, in this category, you could get potentially 15 possible points based on the types of crashes that occur on a segment of road. So you don't get, just a single score. So if you had a number of fatalities there, you'd get more points.
Is this material that you took from the Smart Scale program, or is this something you generated?
No, the crash data is from the Smart Scale program, and then the ranking for crashes was based on the VTrans website, which is a resource out there for VDOT, and also the Planning for Pathways. If you go to those two websites and you look at crash data, it ranks those, it lists those categories of crashes. So
Okay.
yeah. Well, you know what? If I did it by myself.
But I think, just to clarify, there are certain elements in this ranking system that are from Smart Scale, from, the different websites, but overall, this is something that Leon pulled together. This overall ranking system is something that Leon pulled together for us to use as we put forward our project. So it's not the same ranking that Smart Scale uses, but it has elements of the same pieces.
So it's something from here and something from there. And
yeah, right. Trying to find out trying to find a numerical way to say which project is our best one.
Method to the madness.
Yeah. So, and then if you can go switch this project. So,
but being the devil's advocate that I am,
sure.
It seemed that the local roads and perhaps the more rural roads they're not going to have a highest score. It's the arterials, the major roads, they're going to have the higher scores. Is that a fair assumption?
Maybe, maybe not. If you have a rural road that has a high crash volume and severe crashes, they're going to get more points than, say, maybe a arterial. Now, their weighted score is going to be less, yes, because they're typically going to have fewer traffic trips on them. So, but that doesn't mean they're going to outscore a road with a higher functional classification, because if they have more severe crashes or fatalities, then they're going to get more points. So it's possible, but it's not necessarily. It's not absolute.
Yeah, I think it would allow us to compare apples and apples better, though, because when we look at 2 projects or 3 projects on local roads, you could look at those 3 scores for the local road projects and see which one ranked out the highest of the local roads. And then there may be a funding source, like a secondary 6-year plan, that's more appropriate for that type of project, which is probably lower cost, given that it's maybe less right of way or less, less pavement or whatever the issue is. It would enable us to prioritize, those types of projects. You look at when you look at them collectively without, say, a big intersection project or a widening project on 639 or whatever, multi-million-dollar project, you can kind of throw those out and compare them against each other and then compare the local road projects against each other. So you could still rank them out, but yeah, they weighed out differently, but your funding program is probably a different source anyway for the different projects.
So this is not a ranked listing of these roads. So let me clarify that right now. This listing of roads is just how I put them on it. But for the rural roads, the first three are in the current SSYP plan. So they are on the top. So I automatically rank those 1, 2, and 3 because that's what we currently have in the plan. So that's our baseline is right now today. So then just added, Jericho Road, Sparta Road, 301 and 17, intersection of 721 and Route 630, which is the intersection of Sparta and Newtown Road, the turn into the high school, and the turn into the landfill. And then the US 301 and Route 17 intersection improvements in the town of Fort Royal, I just kind of set it aside by itself because that's a significant project. That project, to do anything there is going to cost a significant amount of money because of right-of-way and a whole lot of other issues surrounding it. So I separated that large project out by itself, and it'll show up again in just a second. So can you flip to the smart scale project? So then we have smart scale projects. I'm sorry, I didn't go across top out the titles. So if you go across the banner at the top, you have your project title, your route number, a brief description of the project, the road, the functional classification, and the ADT, the level of service, and I will say most of our level of services in Carolina are either A or B, because we don't have significant level of service issues in the county. And then you have the land use, the surrounding development patterns, so you can kind of get some context to what's happening in the area around the project. Then you have your ranking and your total score, and then you have some notes that you can put on the side over here. And so here's Smart Scale right now, the Page Road and Route 639 Bridge Study. They have an asterisk because they were submitted for pre-applications this last time with this upcoming round with Smart Scale. And I get them confused. Will it be round 6? It'll be round 6, won't it? Yeah, so it'll be round 6 that they will go in as potential projects for Smart Scale. And then again, here's the 301 Route 17 project, which shows up as a potential Smart Scale project because it is a project that is a large sum of money to accomplish whatever it is we're going to accomplish there, much like the 639 project was in Ladysmith. And so then goes to the growth area projects. So then we have, there again, not in any particular order, we have the turn lanes at Lake Caroline, the turn lanes at Gatewood, Ruther Glen Road, Route 207 turn lanes, Carmel Church Loop, Ruther Glen Road, turn lanes, a right turn lane from Carmel Church Loop 1 to 207, median improvements on Carmel Church, maintenance at Welcome Way Drive, and then Drawbridge Road. And then again at the bottom, set out by itself, it's a 639 interchange improvements, because I feel pretty comfortable in saying that when the study is done on that 639 bridge, it's probably going to encompass more than just a bridge. There's some site distance issues there, and so it's not going to be, improvements are not going to be recommended solely just for the bridge. You're not going to say, put in a 4-lane bridge and that's it. They're probably going to talk about the
Turn lanes for getting on the highway.
Getting on and changes to the ramp, so it will encompass more than that. So with that being said, I did a ranking and I came up with my rankings. I don't know if you have the Word document that so I can show that.
Let's see. This one? Out in the ranking roads?
Yeah, it's a Word. Yep.
There you go.
Can you take out the paragraphs?
Yep.
There we go. Thanks. So this was my ranking of the roads, and I'll pass this out and certainly welcome comments and thoughts on it. So in the rural roads, of course, there again, like I said, I listed 1, 2, and 3, the current projects in the 6-year plan. And then, so number 1, absent of those 3, I had the high school turn lanes, I had the landfill turn lanes, had Jericho Road, improvements, and then I had a little explanation as to why. So Jericho Road, my rationale was a high traffic volume, bad curves, high speed, and is included as part of the safety plan, the regional safety plan as well. And then Sparta at Newtown intersection, high count intersection on Sparta Road, and kind of confusing intersection. That intersection had the highest traffic count on Sparta Road at that intersection. So between Route 1 and that intersection, for some reason, that was more than half of the counts in that segment of the road was at that intersection. And then Sparta Road, which is lane width improvements with or limited lane widths and then limited shoulders. And then Route 301 and 17, significant cost right away and significant construction costs. So then in the growth area, I ranked Dry Bridge as number 1 because of the limited pavement, no shoulders, the high traffic volume, bad curves, and the economic development benefit that it will provide. And then the turn lanes at Lake Caroline because of the high speeds on Route 1, the unprotected left movements, and then it would improve the flow on Route 1. Then I had the turn lanes at Gatewood for the unprotected left movements, the improvement of the flows on Route 1. The maintenance at Welcome Way because of the poor pavement condition, and it's an economic development project. That project is in our gateway, and it's a horrible, horrible stretch of road. It's a small stretch, but it is horrible. I mean, it's an embarrassing piece of highway.
Which road is this?
This is Welcome Drive where you have turn to go to the Waffle House. Alex, there are potholes. You can go out there. You can lay down
Near the visitor
by the
center?
post office. Yeah.
No,
Oh,
not this.
Other side.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
that.
the
Oh,
Waffle
yeah.
House is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had I kind of lumped in the Ruther Glen Carmel Church improvements because there are a number of improvements there where Ruther Glen Road comes to Route 207, and then where you have one of those improvements that was suggested was to add a right turn lane on to 207 from Ruther Glen Road between the Exxon and the is that no, not Flying J, it's the Loves. Yeah. So right now that movement is a right in only, and there was a suggestion that we add a right out only there as well. So right now it's kind of you can only come in, but you can't go out there. So the other improvement that I talked about at the other end of that road, which is Ruther Glen and Carmel Church Loop, road names kind of confuse me still, but is to add a dedicated turn lane there so traffic going towards Ruther Glen Road can make a left turn in a dedicated lane. And that could possibly be accomplished through striping. So Kyle, I don't know if we can look at that, but that's something that at that intersection there's a fair amount of yellow striping on that road, and that could be restriped to make that a left turn lane. I don't know if there's enough pavement there. We have to,
It's not even just enough pavement, it's what's under the pavement.
Right.
The question. Thanks, all right.
yeah. So that's just something. So this was kind of how I ranked the priorities. So, I welcome. I'm going to send you all the listing and the worksheets, and you guys can rank the projects and see what the numbers say. And I will tell you, I did this based on because of time and full disclosure, not enough hours in a day, but I did this purely based on what my gut. So I'm anxious to see how the crash numbers work out. I will tell you, if you have any questions about crash numbers, I'm trying to get this updated, but I had the dickens of a time teaching myself the Pathways to Planning website from VDOT, which is a really nice website, and all information is there, but it's tough to navigate if you're not familiar with it. And then also the VTrans website. And then if you get caught in a quagmire on that VDOT website, there's so many resources that you can spend hours and hours. So
You've got a call coming to you tomorrow, specifically from Cassie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So this sheet will be completed, and you'll have all the information you guys need to do your rankings and bring those back. So, and I think it was timely, that Rick was here tonight to talk about the 6-year plan and some of the stuff that Kyle talked about, so that we can put together a transportation plan for Caroline and start to eat this elephant one bite at a time. So,
And if I may jump in too, Leon, like having a priority list from you all outside of just the secondary 6-year plan is so huge. Like having this and things to talk about and projects that you're looking at, moving towards. There are a lot of things that we can do to help. I mean, I'm looking at a couple of these, Welcome Way, unless you're looking to widen that road, I think you're just looking at pavement conditions and having a list ready to put funding on things when funding becomes available, because that sometimes happens. I mean, from a VDOT perspective, our resurfacing budget, it changes every year, and they say, hey, the powers that be in central office, for good reason, they're looking at it from a particular standpoint. They say, hey, you have to use X amount of dollars in your district or in your residency for high volume secondaries, which is why we've been able to get so much asphalt on Ladysmith Road. That's what they said last year. Well, coming for 2025, they just came at us and said, hey, you may have some more for low volume secondary. So the question becomes, hey, does that frontage road of Welcome Way, maybe that qualifies? And having a list there of things that you all are passionate about fixing helps. We have safety and operational improvement funds that, the landfill doesn't qualify for secondary 6-year plan, but it may meet some thresholds for our county safety and operational improvement fund. So having that as, hey, that's your existing second priority. It says number 5 up there, but take the first 3 out. That's the second priority in the county. If I have the amount of funds in that project, to David's earlier point, if that project fits into our funding source, I can get it done. So having a list is big. Over the next year, I'd work on building this list, have more. Because just looking at them, I think we'll start chipping away at it, a couple here and there.
So Kyle, one thing I wanted to ask you with the committee here, because it's something that's really means a lot to me. I enter the county every day on 207 at that interchange. And you would think I know exit numbers after driving that road for 16 years, but I guess we went too fast to recognize the numbers.
That wasn't recorded, was it?
But, I think that gateway to our community is not very attractive. And
Here.
And you and I have had this conversation. And so one of the things that I'd like to add and ask the committee to consider is, some type of beautification project in that corridor. Because, like I said, that is America's look. And that's not an exaggeration. That is America's look at Caroline County. And so when you come off that interchange, you get sign drunk. I mean, I can tell you there are 19 signs between that, when you come off that ramp, between that point and Carmel Church Loop. And that's on one side of the road. There are 19 signs. It is a confusing montage of sign pollution for drivers. And so I talked about, some ideas. So something I hope that the committee would consider, making a priority as well, because I think I want Caroline County to just not be anywhere USA. And if there's one thing that we can do that shouldn't cost us a lot of money to help improve that image, is to start working on that. And it's going to go beyond that, because there needs to be pedestrian accommodations out there. This morning, I encountered 2 pedestrians crossing 207. Yeah, you're right, Alex. It's very dangerous. And
They live there.
No, these were people These are truckers
Go from one truck stop to the other.
to the other, yeah.
But not in the tent on the hill in the
Yeah, no. So, you know, I'm just afraid that at some point we're gonna have a fatality, you know, in that stretch of road. And I can tell you, you know, I live very close to Mechanicsville, and for years and years and years, you know, I feared a fatality. And a couple of years ago, 2 people were struck on Mechanicsville Turnpike in a very busy area, much like this, and one of them was killed. And because there's no pedestrian accommodations, there's no warning signs for pedestrian, there's nothing to give the motorist the sense that there may be people, you know, in the road at some point. And so,
And I agree 100% because I'd always thought that the ditch in the middle of 207, that we could put risers in and build that up, put your drain, instead of having this rocky 7-foot deep ditch down the middle of the road that looks like poop because it grows trees and broom straw. And we could do something there. We could thin out trees to scrub, you know, all the scrub trees and both of our interchanges. The fence along Welcome Way that has trees that are 8 inches in diameter growing through it, you know, take it all out, put a new fence up. That's been something that was requested from me 8 years ago. But we need something like this. Say, hey, it's on our priority list, and you know, it's number 12, but we'll get to it eventually, type of thing. But and it's roadway related, but it's not a road. None of them are roads. They're all impression of Caroline County aesthetics, visibility of businesses that might be behind a set of trees, or on the other side of you know, scrub growth that doesn't look good anyway, but will look much better if it were thinned out and you can see through it. So.
all right.
Yeah, I was gonna say with that list that Kyle was mentioning earlier, I think, you know, with the board that we have here, we have somebody represented out of each district. So if you all would consider bringing forth, because you probably know your district better than Leon or anybody else, if you bring those to Leon, those considerations, we could get those on the list.
You know, to touch on some of the aesthetic stuff, you know, I know this is a priority to that. Been in this residency for 10 years, and I met with probably 8 years ago. Met with the owner of the hotel that's right there. I can't remember her name for the life of me, but she felt very passionately about those trees that are growing up within the limited access fence. You know, these are things that can be done, and I have to say this as bluntly as I can, is that the aesthetics are not the priority for VDOT. And I know that's evident at times. You know, we definitely, when we're building new projects, we're working with the localities, and 639 is a good example of that. We're you know, working with the localities because they're maintaining all the shrubbery and everything else that's up and down the new project on 639, the divided 4-lane road. You know, so we don't mind these things. We just don't have the resources or the funding to maintain them. So we rely on outside entities, developers, HOAs, what have you. If you want something there to look nice, there has to be somebody there willing to take control and maintain that. And they can do that under permit. I have roughly 20 operators in Caroline County. That's not a lot at the end of the day. That's, you know, 4 crews out in the entire county on a given day. That's mowing your grass, that's patching your potholes, that's fixing your drainage complaints, that's, you know, looking at work orders that come in on 1-800-4 road. I mean, all of the things, fixing signs, like these are all the things that VDOT does to keep the roads safe. But if we want to have further conversations about aesthetics, I'm here at the table with you because I think there's a path. I mean, I don't even mind partaking in that solution. Like, I can get rid of the trees on Welcome Way like that, but who's maintaining it? Because they're just going to come back. The shrubbery's just going to come back. And I can't have my 20 guys out there every 2 weeks on Welcome Way that gets, you know,
I'm just 50 vehicles a day, right? Like, I think you sympathize with the where I'm coming from. But if we want to work together to put some kind of a plan together to maintain these things long term, we'll be a partner in that. This is the place to me to have those conversations.
So Kyle, how would that look? Would that, okay, so say if we were to deal with the developers and HOA or whoever the funding may come from.
Yep.
How would that look? Would that be, we'd partner with VDOT and VDOT would now hire additional subs? You say you only have about 20?
More often than not, it would be that developer or that HOA or the county saying, hey, we'd like to maintain this. And it sounds weird, but I allow you to do that.
Okay,
You come through VDOT, you get a permit through Carolyn Ulster, who is my land use engineer, and you put down a surety and you pay a small permit fee and you get a permit to maintain that for X amount of years.
Town of Port Royal has a permit
There you go.
at the south end of town.
Okay.
And there are opportunities in limited access if a business wanted an acknowledgement sign, like say they landscape an entire gore area of a ramp, they could have an acknowledgement sign that said, by McKesson or whoever,
And you have 20 signs.
Good enough.
So again, these are some things, like, I'd be willing to yank that fence up, clear that area, put the fence back one time.
Sure.
As long as somebody on the back end has a permit to maintain it long term. I don't mind going out and helping and doing that work, but I told that woman no years ago. I was the one as the assistant in his position saying, look, I'm not coming out here and doing this because nobody is committed. Look at all the trash. Like, nobody's maintaining this area right now. So it's not hurting the road. It doesn't look good, but Welcome Way is fine. There's potholes. That's a different conversation, but it's not hurting the road. It's just unsightly. And that is not a priority for me. But if I had somebody on the back end of that saying, I'll maintain this and I'm going to do it through a permit. Absolutely. Sign me up. I want it to look better. I ride through this area too.
So one of the thoughts that I've had about the way to accomplish this is, the committee is willing to, make a recommendation to the board that, we set aside a funding source. One of the ways we accomplish the things that Kyle was talking about is, there's got to be a commitment to a funding source. And maybe, either through Kyle, we get an estimate of, okay, what would that be? What would the annual cost be? And then we ask the board through the budget process, hey, allocate X number of dollars for this particular transportation program, or allocate X number of dollars for, our 6-year program, whatever it is that we think is in a beneficial amount, and as the county can stand to set aside for some of these projects. I mean, that's how we begin to tackle these items. And you look around in, 10 years, you'll have a substantial amount of money to put with, some leverage funding or to seed a study or, do some things transportation related. Because, one thing I always say about local government is it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so, we're doing this for the future. It's called planning, and we're looking out to the future. So, if we start tackling it now in small increments, we'll look around and we'll accomplish something, and we won't necessarily be behind the 8 ball.
Just make one more comment. We talked about economic development and safety as factors that would help a project score and smart scale, and there are other funding sources in the feds. Some of these programs, more and more, they talk about resiliency, sea level rise and resiliency. I was just thinking maybe that's a way that we could leverage some federal funding, or at least get some consideration on the drainage issue on 17 from that angle. Because if you're not going to score for crashes or traffic volume, it's not a high volume section of 17. On that 2-lane section, but that might be an angle that we could work, to try.
That's a great idea.
Try to get that.
That is a great idea.
I don't want to poo-poo on what you just said there, but I am working another angle and I haven't let anybody into it quite yet. But
I had a meeting out with the county administrator, yesterday, Rick, is that right? And I've got some other things at play that are I'm hoping to help. I'm not saying that that is a bad idea. I think it's a great idea, frankly, but
But I think too, in that line of thinking, there may be other areas within the county where we have drainage issues.
Yeah.
Where if we had a list of those, then, okay, well, let's put those on a piece of paper, so when funding comes available to fix roads with drainage issues, then we'll have it ready. It won't just be crashes.
It's not just Fort Rawls, it's all over.
We also
Florida
have,
firehouses half underwater.
I think we also have at least 2 disadvantaged census tracts in the county. And sometimes that funding is targeted towards disadvantaged census tracts. So let's have transportation projects ready within those census tracts, so when they come available, we're ready. We're not wondering what we should do.
And like David said, most federal funding sources or grants come with a match. And so if the county decides, hey, we're gonna set aside a certain amount of dollars every year, we may have to take a couple of years until we get enough money to do a match. But like you said, we have a list and we have projects that are ready. And I can tell you one of the things about federal projects is there's a plethora of grant opportunities that pop up, but the window for application is usually really short. And so you can't decide when that notice comes out that you're going to do a project, because you just don't have enough time to put the application together. But if we start identifying some of these projects, and like they were said out front, when those notices pop up, if we've got a little pot of money, say, hey, you know what? We're ready with a project that meets this criteria, and oh, by the way, we've got some money that we can cover the match if necessary. So that's just a strategy for attacking the bigger picture.
And I believe in the Safe Streets for All program that requires a 20% match, but if your project qualifies in one of those disadvantaged census tracts, they waive the match.
Right.
So I mean, it's, you got to be strategic when you sit down.
Yeah, I just have a question. I missed last week, but last month, when I first moved here, I worked with VDOT and some of the representatives on the Safe Walk to Schools program regarding the bicycles and the handicapped access and the walking program to be able to get from your homes into the school districts, be able to walk. And we talked particularly about like Ladysmith and Lewis and Clark Elementary School. And then it became apparent there were other schools in the county that they're building homes, particularly like near Bowling Green, and maybe some other developments popping up eventually down the road that might, because the county was growing so much, that might maybe, I remember a particular call, and I can't remember who the VDOT rep was, that was saying that there might be particularly some other areas of Caroline that could possibly tap into something like that, the Safe Walk to Schools program and the funding eventually down the road that would help to put Caroline and have more robust programs like that overall that didn't have to be limited just to somewhere like Ladysmith with Lewis and Clark Elementary. That maybe we need to look bigger into Caroline County at where this program could be. And my question would be something like that, which is grants that then VDOT would give, and it doesn't even help Ladysmith right now because of the developer program and all of that, right? But if something like that were to come, is that something where road work could be matched with a program like that? And it is a VDOT program for the Safe Walk to Schools program. Can those grants be matched? Can anything like that be matched along with a road repair program or a striping of roads or anything if you matched it with a local rural road as well? Or,
I think, if I'm understanding, I think that answer is yes. So if you have like a smart scale project, like you can tap into local funds, you can add pedestrian accommodations, sidewalk accommodations onto that application.
I wonder if maybe we need to think, like if we're thinking around, I don't know if we need to look if we're looking, 4, 5, 6 years out, right? And we know what the development plans are elsewhere, right? Even if we look just right here with Bowling Green Schools, are there roads there are other projects that need to be done, right? That other Safe Walk to Schools program could hit, because my understanding is it's good money in those programs, right? that it could match and help us with the roadways and also get us safer walk to school programs, because we know that rural communities, that there's, you know, a need for, kids to be walking to school
Yep.
and biking to school.
Yeah, I think that answer is yes, if I'm understanding you correctly. I think you can utilize the funding from those programs to do various different things within the parameters of the program.
So maybe that's something to look at to add on to things as we move forward. Please for suggestions.
Mr. Chair, I'm done.
Well done, thank you, thank y'all. Let's move on to the next item. Is there any unfinished business from last time? None? Moving to the next, how about new business? Y'all ready to go?
We're gonna be, Rick is gonna be sending out the high-risk rural road, sketches. I know Mr. Underwood asked to get that in front of you all, so we'll be sending that out within the week.
First thing, big thank you to the staff and VDOT for coming out here and working with Caroline County, and motion to adjourn.
Wow, that was quick.
Is the motion that, and second that we adjourn this meeting until
And thank you, Mr. Chair.
first Wednesday and, y'all have a good evening, be safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Don't forget to bring those lists with y'all of repairs in your neighborhood.
Oh, jeez.